All right, let's jump into the news. The big story right now, of course, is it is Super Tuesday, and we've already got a bunch of projected winners. Okay, so I'm not going to read any of them. I'm just going to say Biden won all of the Democrat ones already. And okay, there we go. Is there anything else to add to that? Is there anything anybody wants to say?
No, we don't really have much else
Did anyone bet on Dean Phillips? Do we think he's going to have like a breakthrough state tonight? He's going to come through? Or is it just Nikki Haley?
Who is that
guy?
make you rich? I don't know who Dean Phillips is. Who is
Dean Phillips was running.
He's
for
a
congressman
second
trying against Biden.
Yeah, he's a congressman from Minnesota, and he declared a run against Biden. He's running as a Democrat, and he said basically he's been positioning himself as a moderate, saying at one point he was saying maybe Nikki Haley will be my VP so we can have a unity ticket, which sounds terrible to me, but
okay, Dave. All right, Nikki Haley is winning in Massachusetts with 0.1% reporting.
You're going to be so
all right, this bet is looking good.
You're looking good.
So much
more.
Winning in
more to go.
Vermont.
Isn't it so funny too that she's lost everything except DC, which like if you were working for Trump's campaign, you'd be like, yeah, please give her DC.
Yeah.
Like that couldn't paint a better narrative for our guy that everywhere in the country picks Trump except DC picks Nikki Haley.
I wouldn't be surprised if Trump people were whispering to DC Republicans like, vote for Nikki.
Oh yeah.
We want her to win DC.
Because it just says it all.
Exactly.
By the way, it should be pointed out, I mentioned this before we started recording, but look, the DNC, which is the most corrupt organization in the universe, perhaps. We haven't explored the entire universe, but I think it's safe to say. They, by rigging the whole thing, really robbed us of what could have been a really interesting night if RFK was actually allowed to have a primary with Joe Biden and wasn't forced to go run independent. And I was very interested in RFK's campaign for a while before he went on his national give a hand job to every rabbi in the country tour. But at the time, nothing? I thought that was pretty good. It was brilliant. But I would just say they totally drove him out, and that would have actually been, this would have been a really interesting night if it was RFK versus Joe Biden and seeing where the chips fell on that one.
I think it might be still comparable to Nikki Haley.
Would have been not Nikki Haley. It would have been more than that. He was polling around 20 to 30% in a lot of polls, so he wouldn't have been like, I think he would have done something.
Well, we have the Republican results map. This is going to shock all of you.
Is it really?
Trump has won every state so far.
Yep.
That's got enough that's in.
No, that can't be right.
And here's the best part. Okay, here's the best part. They actually have a color code for Haley and a color code for Trump.
Wait, why are they the same color?
No, they're different. They're different.
But they're too close.
But it just would have been so amazing if they did not include a color for Haley winning. And they were just like, if it's red, Trump won. Because, let's see, Idaho is in. Trump wins with 85%. Nevada, Trump wins with 99%. Oh, I'm sorry. That's actually not from today. So we're still waiting on a bunch. What we have here are the results so far from all of these other states. So these aren't just now, but Haley's got nothing. I guess DC. Are they count? There you go. I guess they needed that color one time for Nikki Haley. She's got one. And look at this. Okay, so here we go. Virginia projected winner is Trump. North Carolina is Trump. And we're still waiting on the rest of the results where they will call it all for Donald Trump. And then we're going to pretend like we're surprised, I guess. So.
I really wish I had like an insider scoop from her war room right now of what state they're like, I really, really think we can get Colorado. Like what state does Nikki Haley's team seriously think they could secure? And it's not even to be mean. Like what are the odds here? So many states are backing Trump.
I think they could get Vermont.
You think you get Vermont?
But it also doesn't matter if you get Vermont. Well, they could potentially get Massachusetts, right?
So they're going to get the East Coast.
So they could get like a little New England, a little bit of New England. That's what they could get. But it also doesn't matter.
It's not enough. Nothing's going to turn the tide.
And I also don't think the goal of her campaign is to win. The goal of her campaign, I think, is to, pull support from Trump, pull money from Trump, and get in the way of a Trump landslide. I think that's the whole point.
I disagree with that. I mean,
you think she has a real point.
I think that the goal of the Nikki Haley campaign, and I think she's actually even made this quite clear, where she's kind of said the quiet part out loud. Like, didn't she say? I think over the last week she said, like, well, if there are going to be legal cases against Donald Trump, they shouldn't wait till after the election.
Well, yes, she did say that for sure.
Look, there's been a whole obviously Look, as I'm sure almost everyone here knows, our government is not actually run by elected representatives.
What?
I'm sorry to shock everyone here, but there are unelected shadowy figures who have far more power than even the president of the United States has. The head of the Federal Reserve has far more power than the president of the United States have. The head of the CIA has far more power than the president of the United States has. And all of the really powerful people have signaled that under no circumstances will Donald Trump be allowed to be president of the United States again. And Nikki Haley is playing the game of let me hang out here and see if by some other forces Donald Trump is removed and then I get the nomination. But that's the only game. So I don't completely disagree with you. I'm just making the point that I do think she sees a path. It's not an electoral path to victory, but she sees a path of something happens to Trump, he's taken out of the equation, and I get the nomination.
A procedural path, if you
yes.
would. I love making this reference because it's from a children's show, but it's I think it's Justice League. Lex Luthor, the comic book supervillain who hates Superman, is running for president. And when one of the heroes confronts him, Luthor says, "Do you have any idea how much power I would have to give up to be president?" Right. It's fascinating to me that even children's programming thinks 10, 12-year-old boys who watch superhero shows are smart enough to understand your government is not run by politicians, but by powerful corporate interests.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And not just, look, obviously there's corporate interests and money interests who have tremendous influence over our government. But I'm saying even within the government apparatus itself, look, Chuck Schumer famously said the quiet part out loud when he was in an impromptu way on Rachel Maddow's show. This was in 2017. It was, I believe, in January, either December 16 or January 17. It was when Trump was president-elect, before he had been sworn in. And Rachel Maddow, if you ever watch it, she kind of interrupts and she goes, "Look, this wasn't on the program, but Donald Trump just tweeted this. Have you seen what he tweeted?" And he tweeted something criticizing the CIA. And Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, with no hesitation went, "Pfft, I mean, man, that's really stupid to criticize the CIA because they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you." And so he just let you know that the commander-in-chief dare not criticize his intelligence agencies who work for him because they will ruin you. But by the way, what happened? Oh yeah, they framed him for treason. Yeah. For 3 years after that. So that's, and then look, just think about the whoever runs the Federal Reserve. I mean, you want to get reelected or something like that, they could just be like, okay, I'm jacking interest rates up by 2 points. Mm-hmm. You're done. You have no shot. That's it. So look, we all talk about like politics and government all the time. And it's like, if we're talking about it and you don't recognize this reality, we're almost not even really talking about the thing that we're talking about. This government is not run by the politicians who we elect, if that's even right. So, but whatever. I'm not questioning any elections. I would never do that. Not on YouTube.
You're allowed
to. Every election is legitimate.
No, you're allowed to.
Are we allowed to now?
Yeah, they changed the rules like a year ago.
Don't make claims about it that you can't back up.
I'm not making any claims.
But
I'm saying that if elections are even legitimate, it doesn't really matter because none of those people run the government.
I think this is really interesting because Nikki Haley, when she gave that speech, her "I am not dropping out" speech, which bad luck that you have to even make that. But she said, if I were to drop out right now, this would be the longest general election in American history. And I think that's good, right? Like if we stopped worrying about who's going to be the presidential nominees, if we accept that it's going to be a Biden-Trump matchup, any conservative, libertarian, independent could really demand that you hear more specifically who is going to be in your cabinet, who are you going to appoint to these positions of power, what are you going to do to change? We don't want it to just be, oh yes, we'll talk about it later. We need specific names because we basically already know these people's platforms. We don't need to go over this again. We need to know what your staffing policy is.
Yeah, and I'd like to see more of a matchup between Biden and Trump. Like we saw them both at the border. I thought that was really fascinating to see both of them and how they both handled that. One was effective and well-spoken and seemed conscious, and the other one did not seem like any of those things. And I think that during the 2020 election, we had a situation where Joe Biden was living in his basement and spending absolutely no time actually on the campaign trail. When he was on the campaign trail, do you guys remember this? It was like he would be on a stage 6 feet separated from a bunch of Jeeps that were 6 feet separated. There were no people. He was debating, he was debating before an audience of Jeeps. And it was like there was nothing he didn't have to prove anything. But actually standing next to Trump, he would clearly have to prove something. And I think I'd love to see just more debates between the two of them.
How much do you think Jeep paid for that?
Probably a ton.
Yeah, I bet they were
right?
like, hey, can we buy the empty audience area?
Yeah.
Just put a bunch of cars there.
And that's what it was. And it was all Jeep commercials too during that event.
That's so weird. Biden brought to you by Jeep.
But look, to your
I think
point,
we should start remembering what they did to us in 2020.
Look, I completely agree with that. But to your point, I mean, look, what a ridiculous rationalization from Nikki Haley, because the reality is that you're asking people to continue to donate money, to donate their time, to volunteer for your campaign, to come out and cast ballots for you. And there's only really two reasons you could possibly ask for that. Number one is that there's a path to victory. And number two is that our campaign is spreading some type of message that is important, that is necessary. And what is Nikki Haley's, first of all, there's no path to victory other than Donald Trump gets arrested or something like that, or convicted, I should say. He's been arrested. And the message she's spreading is like, hey, the military-industrial complex makes a point. Like, there's like, what do you...
They
like,
need our help.
What is the point of you staying in here? It's all just like completely ridiculous.
That's what concerns me big time about it. Because like, why would she choose to stay in? There's no reason. She's lost. So someone's chosen for her to stay in.
That's exactly
and
right.
why?
I think
not because of the message. It's not. They're not giving a message. They're just waiting in the wings for something to happen. Which makes me nervous.
Maybe it is what Dave was saying. Maybe they're just waiting for Trump to lose on these lawsuits. But now, at this point, we see that so many of them are going to be delayed. They're not going to be able to decide this stuff before the election at all. You know what I mean?
If she dropped out and then Trump were removed from the ballot, could she go back in? Or are you, once you're out, you out?
Theoretically,
Marianne Williamson unsuspended her campaign.
Well, look, theoretically, if nobody reaches the the 1,200 or whatever delegates you need, the RNC gets to pick who the nominee is. There's no like inherent democratic process forced into primary processes. So like the RNC can decide whoever they want the nominee to be at the convention if nobody meets the threshold.
Which
Dave,
is
I have a
not
question.
great.
I got to ask Dave a question because we've had many people speculate on this show. But what you said a moment ago is that they will not allow Donald Trump to be president. These people have substantially more power. The question then is, what happens? Is it really simple? Is it Trump gets convicted? It's looking like his trials are going to be delayed well beyond the election, so that's not going to matter.
Well, look, we still have, it's a weird thing in the United States of America, right? Like you have, say, like the Constitution, and you could read the Constitution and then look at the government that we have right now and recognize that it bears no resemblance to this document. And the truth is that it's a very kind of uniquely American idea. There's lots of countries out there that don't have written constitutions. They just kind of have like norms and precedents and things like that. We do still have like these ancient dying structures of some degree of separation of powers, of some of these institutions. And you saw this with the Supreme Court the other day. Like it was unanimous. Everyone's like, no, there's no way you can interpret from the Constitution that you can just scream insurrectionist and then take someone off the ballot. Like even the liberal justices were like, this is too ridiculous. And so you do still have this process. Look, they can't just bring a charge of insurrection against him and then bring that to court.
Well,
because
he was acquitted of it.
Well, right, but they know. No, he wasn't acquitted.
He was acquitted of yes, he was.
Insurrection? When was he ever charged?
No, he wasn't charged.
He was impeached in Congress.
No. I'm sorry. I'm not talking about being impeached.
I know. But this is arguably for a president under the immunity argument. The process goes, an impeachment is effectively the indictment. And then if you are convicted by the Senate, it opens you up to criminal prosecution.
Sure. So I was referring to criminal. I'm saying they couldn't even get him on the impeachment over it, let alone the idea of they could actually bring criminal charges.
My point is double jeopardy might actually apply.
Yeah.
Oh, you think because of the impeachment?
An argument that's been made is
that's interesting.
He's already been effectively charged and tried and acquitted.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know whether that's right or not, but that's interesting. But I'm just making the point that, look, there are these things that they're trying to go through clearly to get him removed from the race. I don't know exactly how this plays out. I will say that Donald Trump's enemies are the most powerful people in the history of the world. And if you're betting on who wins that fight,
Donald Trump.
Look, you're saying, yeah, but a lot of the American people support him.
Yeah, Dave,
right.
but Trump's playing 5D chess.
Well, yes, that's what people say. So I would just say that it's certainly look, if we're just going by democracy, then obviously Donald Trump is clearly going to win the nomination. If we're just going by democracy, it seems like a pretty good bet that he would beat Joe Biden in an election right now. But there's lots of other factors other than the democratic process.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.